Now, the phases of coronary blood flow, this is something very important. Now, people imagine, when it comes to aorta is a vessel that gets arised from left ventricle. So, when does the aorta gets filled? Only when left ventricle contracts. During left ventricular ejection, blood from left ventricle enters into aorta. From the aorta, the blood flows into every other systemic vasculature. But there are two very important principles you got to understand, guys. Number one, when the blood is getting ejected, the direction of blood flow is going to be so linear in such a way that the coronary sinus cannot get adequately filled. That's point number one. Point number two, every time when a ventricle contracts, consider this picture, guys. So these are all, cardiac myocyte. This is one cardiac myocyte, second cardiac myocyte, third cardiac myocyte, fourth cell, fifth cell, like that. In between cardiac myocytes, you are seeing coronary arterioles and coronary capillaries. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 coronary capillaries. During diastole, because the muscle fibers are relaxed, the blood vessels are very much open and dilated. Alright, at the same time, during systole, when all these muscle fibers are getting contracted, the coronary capillaries and coronary arterioles are practically getting squeezed by these compressing muscle fibers. So there is going to be a crush kind of effect over these capillaries. Imagine my hand as a cardiac myocyte. Every finger represents cardiac myocyte, and consider this pencil as a coronary capillary and arteriole. Now imagine if this arteriole is placed in between cardiac myocyte, when this cardiac myocyte goes for systole and contraction, this coronary capillary is being completely shut closed. If the capillary is shut closed, there is going to be huge pressure generated in the capillary that prevents blood from coronary arteriole to fill into coronary capillary, that prevents blood from coronary artery to get into coronary arteriole. So left ventricular filling, left ventricular perfusion, left ventricular blood supply will never happen in systole. Because of compression of coronary capillaries during left ventricular ejection, the blood flow to left ventricular myocytes will happen only when the ventricles are relaxing, that is during diastole, guys, where the blood vessels are getting optimally filled during diastole. Alright, so when it comes to left ventricle, please remember this manifestation is only for left ventricle, not for right ventricle. Reason? Right ventricles are not such a thick structure. You have a thorough understanding of the shape of the heart, structure of the heart, how does the right ventricle appears, left ventricle appears, what is the thickness of those wall chambers and everything. Right ventricular walls are not that thick enough to cause a compression effect, guys, so it is not going to create any such effect. When it comes to coronary filling, alright, see people, right coronaries, right coronary artery is filled during systole, and this right coronary artery is going to take blood to right atrium and right ventricle, whereas left coronary artery is getting filled during diastole, guys. Alright, whatever you just learned in a picturesque manner is being explained by a graph, and I want you to be very thorough in this graph as well, guys. Alright, on the x-axis we are going to study coronary blood flow or coronary filling. On the y-axis it is going to be coronary blood flow per minute. It's a coronary blood flow per minute. It's a time-based coronary blood flow, guys. So during cardiac cycle, if you consider, you take up left coronary artery. At the beginning of systole, the amount of blood that is flowing in left coronary artery is going to be very limited, and the blood flow cannot happen for a longer duration because during systole the vessels are getting compressed. As the pressure increases, the filling abruptly drops. But during diastole, the filling is going to be enormously higher, guys. So left coronary artery filling happens essentially during diastole, guys. Left coronary artery is filling essentially during diastole. you can clearly see much of the blood is happening during diastole. On the contrary, right coronary artery is getting maximally filled during systole itself. So right coronary filling happens during systole, left coronary filling happens during diastole, guys. That's the way with which cardiac coronary vasculatures are getting filled, people.